And the first story I shared, yeah, that was the public performance where I shared. This was from the book by Kathy Spagnoli called The World of Indian Stories. So she was the person I contacted when I thought of becoming a professional storyteller. I had emailed her and said, you know, I want to be a professional storyteller. I don't know where to go, what to do. And she replied and she said, maybe you could look at this book, because by then she was not living in India anymore. And one of the stories I loved in that book is this story about a girl. It's called Buying a Song.
Okay, buying a song.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lady who tells her husband that she wants a song to be bought for her. It's a fun folk tale, and there's so much to play around with in terms of music and acting, and it's funny. I love telling stories which have a nice mix of emotion, which can be serious, but also there's wit, there's lightheartedness. So this is one of those stories, and I remember it was for Scholastic's 90th anniversary,
Okay.
and someone hadn't come. And by chance, that the Scholastic guy met me one day before, and he said, you know, this author from Bangalore is not coming, can you fill in? And I said, okay, great, I'll fill in. And I think there were 200 to 300 people, and I was a little nervous because I thought, will small children and adults and principals, there were principals also, so is everybody going to like it, and will it work? And it turned out to be a blast that day. So I have very pleasant memories of that story, and I've narrated it many times later in different ways.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, in fact, when it comes to storytelling, you know, the best thing is it's not alien to any of us. We all have heard stories as we are growing up. Our parents are our first storytellers, and if you are lucky to have grandparents at home, that's like a feast.
Absolutely.
Now, two questions here. One, there are different varieties or genres of storytelling.
Yeah.
So, what according to you is India's speciality? Because you've traveled the world,
Yeah.
you know different genres available, but
Yeah.
there is something in it in our culture.
Yeah.
So, what is the speciality of India? Number one. And number two question, which is a follow-up question on that, is sadly or unfortunately, as we grow, we stop sharing stories. What do you think is the main reason? Not just in India, is this the same trend across the world, or what happens? Because you know this, so I want to know from you, for the sake of the audience, how does it work?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So the first question, since I am, my style of telling is also inspired by Indian oral traditions, Chandra. I love the fact that our storytelling is never just a narration. Yeah, almost all of our traditions, whether it's Harikatha, Burra Katha, or it is Baul from Eastern India, or it is Kawad in Rajasthan, Dastan Goe from Kashmir, Pandwani storytelling in Chhattisgarh. Yeah, and there are so many more. I'm sure I've named very few of them. All of them, what is common in them is there is more than just the narration. You know, there's either poetry, or there is music, or there is dance, or there is support with props, or all of these. There's a chorus that joins in, yeah, which makes it like that next level of enriched performance. Yeah. Second, the stories themselves. We have unending plenty. Ramayana, Mahabharata, the other epics, Panchatantra, Katha Saritsagar, Tenali Rama stories, Raja Bhoj, Vikramaditya, Kasimajli Katalu, Pedarasi Peddamma. Recently I met someone who said in Maharashtra they have Undi, stories of the rat, and it's an entire series. So we are filled with stories. And there are so many possibilities in these stories. The most common genres, of course, are folk and mythology, yeah, that we have. And the styles are these, music and movement. These are what I find stand out, yeah. Not only for us, in my little travels, what I have seen is very often people from most other countries know our stories or have even performed our stories. Yeah, so at Singapore, I remember there was a French storyteller of Norwegian origin and French, living in France, and he performed the Panchatantra in Singapore. Yeah, and I remember having a conversation with him about it, and I said, you know, I've come all the way from India, Abhi, and I see you tell the Panchatantra. And he said, yeah, I'm telling your stories, but the trouble is that you are not telling your stories enough. Yeah, so he definitely has a point. We could do a lot more.
That's very true, because on the same Right Way Leader show, 3 episodes before, we had the famous author Radhakrishna Pillai. He spoke about, or he's a famous author on Chanakya Niti, Arthashastra. So in fact, he shared a narration and in the show, and I repeat that, he said that when he was sharing about Chanakya Niti and Arthashastra to some people in Vietnam and Cambodia, so there the people embraced it with so much of pride. They said that, you know what, we need to implement this in our schools, we need to teach the children, and we need to engage them with this meaning. And when Dr. Radhakrishna Pillai heard that, he said, well, I think it's a good idea and we should also do that back in our country. People were shocked to know that, and they said, oh, we thought you already do it in your country. So that's the point, right? So we have so much of treasure in our country and with heritage and with a lot of these things. But unfortunately, we are waiting to see the next new thing on the block and leaving behind what is already there.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we see a lot of people joining us. Okay, so you have a question from Wakui Caesar. He's asking, Deep, when you arrive in Peru?
Oh, when you call me. I would love to.
All right, so she's ready to be there in Peru. Gopi, Birad, Chitra, Sundarraman, Madhuri, thanks for watching, thanks for joining us. Lakshmi Talam, Bharati Devi, all of you, thank you so much. We get going with the questions.
Hey Bharati.
Thanks so much. Now the next question. In fact, interesting, you mentioned about the oral tradition, and I straight away go back to one of the questions which I received from a good friend of both of us, Sriram, Sriram Curry.
Yes.
His question is about oral tradition, so I bring that up in the order. So the question is, how important is oral tradition of storytelling in education and parenting? So Sriram asked about that. Can you share a few experiences or your opinion on this question? How important is oral tradition of storytelling in education and especially parenting?
Yeah. I think that's all I've done with my children. As a parent, I have 2 boys who are now 14 and 12, and we work with stories so much, and I can see what's happening with us, in our own relationship. I'm saying that before I talk about what I've seen with other parents. It's really worked for us, the kind of bond we share, the trust we share. My children would say, Mama, you're more like a sister or a friend. And I thought they're just saying one of those things, now you're here and you think you're supposed to tell your mother, I love you, Mama. Mama, you're my best friend. But I actually found that perhaps it's not me, it's really the stories. Because whenever I find that there is a gap in sharing stories or exchanging stories, there is even a gap in our non-story communication. So I think what stories do is, really when I'm telling a story as a parent, I'm saying I value spending time with you. I don't give a damn about my gadgets, my office assignments, my blah 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 housework to be done. I just want to be with you and talk to you. And that's the message a child gets. So I know there are days when I'm so dead tired, and they would say, Mama, tell a story, and I'm like, and the ant fell into the well, and the merchant said, and they'll be laughing, they said, Mama, you've moved from one story to another. But still they are happy that I have put everything else aside and engaged in the act of sharing. So that builds a deep trust, a very deep trust, and I'm so thankful for it today, because there are things that have come up and they have shared with me at points which has surprised me, and I felt, thank God they did. And what gave them the confidence to share this? Of course, it's many other things, but definitely it is the fact that we put everything aside and take time to share stories, which means that nothing else matters to me, just being with you. Apart from everything, all the other learning or development possibilities, I mean, there are so many. My children are avid readers today. They're articulate. They can comprehend. They can ask their doubts in the classroom. I think we owe a lot to a storytelling culture at home for all these things also, to be able to make opinions of the world, articulate their opinions. Yeah, but primarily for parenting, it's trust. I think the kind of trust that can build with storytelling is not worth not doing storytelling at home. The education field, if you really go back to any culture, any civilization, pre-print, before print happened, before any of this happened, it was stories. Every community passed on their knowledge of life, living, of their understanding of astronomy or what food to eat, how to build their homes, everything through stories. Every culture in the world did that. Every civilization passed on through oral narratives, and it stayed in the minds, So I think that is proof enough. History is proof enough that can be a very powerful tool. And I always tell teachers, when you go into a classroom and ask, do you want to listen to a story? No child is going to say no, very rarely. So you're really beginning on such a comfortable front. You're starting with something that you want and the children want. So if you can leverage that and piggyback on that, then there are infinite possibilities for learning, for exchanges, and the same thing, the trust builds, children open up, their confidence builds, because that's the primary role of an educator, right? To build trust, to build a fearless space where the child can explore who they are, what they are. We are not really teaching, we are only facilitating a nice, warm, cooperative, nourishing space. And storytelling and story arts can play a crucial role in that, I believe.
Fantastic.
Right.
Well, I think
that's what I think,
that's
Sriram.
the secret sauce here, especially for parents. And thanks, Sriram, for asking that. But this, I think, is a very, very timely concern today, where a lot of parents come to us in schools and where I meet my friends who have kids. All of them have this concern how to get the children off their gadgets. I mean, this is a big menace today, and screen time has now replaced almost everything at home.
Everything.
And even sometimes outside home.
Yeah.
And I think going back to your answer, I think that is the solution, and that is a very, very simple solution, but a very effective one at that, where if you can share stories with your children, talk to your children, tell them your day, how it went, and just engage with them, it solves the problem to a great extent. I think all of us can start doing that, especially who have the little ones or who have people at home with whom we need to build a bond. I think storytelling is a great way to do that.
Yes. Since you say that, I tell parents, just try this for 1 month, tell 2 or 3 minutes a story. It can be, as Chandra said, it can just be what happened in the day. But just sit down and tell a story to your child. Try it for 1 month. Believe me, they will be sharing a lot more with you. And second, as he said, any age group. It was one of the Toastmasters sessions that a young student, he was an undergrad, he went back and he SMSed the next day. He said, my mother was unwell. And I went back from this session and I sat down and shared the stories that I heard with her, and she was smiling and in tears. It just makes so much meaning for anyone. Yeah.
In fact, what you said is right. The fact that you are trying to talk to your friends or people at home or in your life by leaving aside everything, I mean, putting your mobile aside or your work aside or any other thing, means a lot. It can't be expressed in words or weighed in volume and said, okay, you're doing this much of replacement in terms of love, affection. Very good.